You can sort of maintain a level by being a slacker. That's sort of my MO right now, because I still work full time. I work like 50 hours a week at a non-musical gig, but I love playing the trombone. So I quit for like 2 months at a time, all the time. In fact, I had a gig, December 16th, and I quit after that. I didn't play for 2 months. I was going on a lot of trips, vacations and stuff. Came back, and I have this little thing for getting ready for a gig when you haven't been playing for a while. It's like a 3-day routine of just like shedding and trying to get your chops back so that you can make it through a 4-hour gig.
In a world where trombone players and musicians want to know the answers to burning questions, top trombone players, even me, are here with Paul the Trombonist Nowell to answer your burning questions.
All right, let's have you talk about your little slacker routine.
All right, so yeah, I think that my claim to fame as a trombonist might be that I'm the world's greatest slacker trombonist, because I don't put in the time, but I'm able to somehow maintain a certain level of proficiency and still stay engaged in the scene. You know, I'm not a full-time professional, but I keep my chops up enough so that I can do gigs when I get called, and I can go and enjoy my jazz improv type of gigs. So what'll happen though? It's like, have you ever been like in a workout program at the gym and everything's going really well, and then all of a sudden you get busy for a couple of weeks, and then it's really hard to get motivated to get back into it?
Oh yeah.
And so you end up going on a long hiatus.
Oh yeah.
That's what happens with me with my playing. And so, like I was saying, if I take 2 months off and then all of a sudden I have a gig coming up in a week, I'm tired after work. It's hard to get motivated to practice, but I know I have to do it, or I'm going to have a bad time on the gig, then it's pointless, right? Why go if you're not going to enjoy yourself? So here's what I do. I took a tip from a mountain bike racer, actually, named Ned Overend, and he was a fantastic mountain bike rider. But as he got older, he was able to still keep beating all the young cats. And so he said, well, people asked him, how do you do this? And he said, well, I'm not training nearly as much as they are, but I'm training more intensely when I do train. And so it's sort of like a compressed type of practice. So since I'm not really trying to get better, all I'm trying to do is dust off my skills and maintain them, all I do the first day back after a long layoff is I turn on my computer to some Abersols and I just play. But I never take the horn off my lip for like until I can't do it anymore, like maybe an hour. And I'm playing hard, fast, playing everything I know how to do, trying to play high, trying to play at different volumes. Very articulately. It's a really good workout. Okay, so that's day one. And I usually on day one actually feel okay, because even though my muscles have atrophied over a 2-month layoff, they're not sore or inflamed, or swollen on the first day. So you can actually play pretty good on the first day. Then the second day you go out in the shed and you start practicing, and like your tone sounds like it's got mold on top of it. It's all furry, and you can't. You're imprecise. You're not hitting your notes, and your high chops are gone, and you feel severely tired like within 15 minutes. Right?
Wow.
Day two. Okay. So what I've learned about day two is you just kind of got to roll with that, and it's going to suck, and you got to just push on through it. The one thing I try not to do on day two is keep at it so long that I would maybe bruise or put any kind of abrasion on my lips on the inside. Like I don't know if that ever happens to you, but sometimes if I play too hard, and especially in that condition, you could bruise your lips easily because you don't actually have the muscle tone built back up, right?
Right.
So you're gonna try and do your thing, but when it starts to hurt, stop. Don't push it too far. Day two. Okay, so then there's this other thing from exercise physiology, which is recovery time and tapering that I apply to the trombone too. So day 3, I say 3 days of practicing before a gig, but this might actually start in real time like 5 days before the gig.
Okay.
Because you've now just totally worn out your chops, and you know, these are all muscles, the corners and everything. So now it's time to like let your muscles recover a little bit, let the lactic acid flush out, and so I'll give it a rest maybe for a day, and then I'll come in on my 3rd day of practicing, which might be the 4th day in real time, and it's like, I don't know, it just seems like it just comes together.
Wow.
And I can have a really good practice session. Now here's the risk there. If I have that 3rd day really good practice session, but it's the night before the gig, I'm actually screwing myself, because I'm going to be tired on the gig because I'm going to have overdone it the night before.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 2 ways to handle that. If your schedule made it so that 3rd night of playing is the night before the gig, even though you feel really great, you got to stop after like 45 minutes so that you can not feel tired the next day. Because what'll happen is you'll get a little bit of swelling in your chops, and then that's what makes the furry sound, and it makes the lack of flexibility, because they're just muscles that are getting overused. You know. Or the better strategy is to make, like, okay, next Saturday night I have a pretty important gig, and I'm gonna practice, you know, tomorrow and probably Tuesday and maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, but I'm not going to play Friday night. I'm just going to taper. I'm going to take a day off, and then when I get to the gig, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel like I've got you know, good high chops. Everything's clicking. It's pretty repeatable. Just like people that train for athletic events, they have to learn how to peak on certain days.
Yeah.
When you're a slacker like me and you don't practice enough, you got to be able to figure out how to peak on certain days with your trombone playing.
Now, what was the thing you mentioned to me previously before about like caffeine and water or something?
Okay, so yeah, that's an important part of musculature, which is you cannot be dehydrated. So one of the things that happens if you're dehydrated, let's say you had a hard night of drinking, which, you know, I'm not proud to say, but it happens to me probably way too much than it should, and so you're dehydrated the next day, or maybe you just were really busy and drinking a bunch of coffee and you didn't properly hydrate. So now your muscles actually don't have the support that they should, and when you put the mouthpiece on your lip and you play hard, you're more likely to bruise your chops, and you're going to get tired faster. So there's a couple things that'll make you get tired really fast, and one of them is playing outdoors and trying to fill the room, but there is no room, right? You're unconsciously overblowing. And the other thing is just, it's hydration, is not being hydrated, and also not having a proper amount of blood sugar. Like, you need to eat well, and you need to drink a lot of fluids.
What about sleep?
Sleep's really important too. You know, it's all those things that if you think about trombone playing in a physical context, like you're going to be sort of like an athlete about the way that you play the trombone, then everything you just mentioned is critical. And it'll make a total difference, you know. And I know we like to party, and you know, that's part of our whole scene, is especially as jazz musicians, we're out late and doing all this stuff. But if you can, you know, find a way to take care of your body, it'll make it much better, and it'll make my little tricks work too. Because if you're worn down, you're not going to be able to make the progress to rebuild your muscles in 3 days. Or it's just getting your muscle tone back to where it should be, you know?
That's amazing. That's a really fascinating.
So the other way to do it, though, is, see, I don't want to steer anybody wrong. I don't want to recommend this. So do we have time for me to get into a little analogy?
Of course.
Okay. So here's the thing. I am just super stoked about you and your career, because as a former early teacher of yours, you know, we had this discussion, and I said, if I knew then what I know now, I might not be an accounting and finance executive. I might be a professional player, because I gave up too soon. So what happened was, what I noticed in retrospect is that all my peers who I used to play with and went to school with at Long Beach State and did a bunch of gigs with, you know, we're talking about Wayne Bergeron and John Patitucci and Ron Stout and Jeff Bonnell and Bill Liston and, you know, Dan Higgins and all these cats that are really successful right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was back in the day, I was one of the cats, you know, and Andy Martin, you know, he and I went to high schools that were right next to each other. We've known each other a long time. And what happened was those guys had the patience, kind of like a doctor goes to school, and they're going to be in school and their residency and stuff for over 10 years. They're not going to actually get a payback on their investment. They're going to be working their ass off and kind of sucking wind, like, you know, renting a student apartment and making it paycheck to paycheck, if that, for a long time. But then it's going to turn around and explode. Well, so what makes it explode for a musician, I think, here's my theory, is that during that whole time that you're paying your dues, you're making connections, you're networking, you're meeting a lot of really talented people, because you're doing this because you have musical talent and you also have the drive to stick with it, right? At some point, one of your peer group, one person is all it takes, is going to get called to sub on something, and they're going to get their foot in the door, and they're going to start working more with the older generation. The older generation is plugging all the spots, you know, all the gigs in studio work and whatnot. They're taken already. So there has to be like that one guy who gets in, and that might not happen for 10 or 15 years. But then all of a sudden, okay, so that guy's working a lot. And I mean, you might be that guy of your generation, right? Because you're starting to work a lot, and you know, probably a lot of the people you know your age that are musically talented, but they just haven't really figured out a way to break through yet. But once you're well established and you're that guy, now it's your turn to start calling other musicians. Who do you want to work with? You're going to work with all your friends, right? All the people that you know, suffered with for 10 years and you got to know, and you know they're talented, you know they're capable, they just haven't had a chance yet. So all of a sudden, everybody of a certain generation becomes an overnight success, and there was nothing overnight about it. Okay, if I knew that then, I might have stuck with music, but I gave up too soon, and I went a different path and got into business, and, you know, went to UCLA, got my economics degree, became a CPA, did all this stuff that's non-musical. So for those of you that you know are really serious about your careers, do it Paul's way. I mean, I'm so proud of Paul, because there's a lot of guys with musical talent, but to figure out the added value and the extra hard work to like create something like this show, and you know, your well, Bone Masters as well as Paul the Trombonist, both, you know, they're both unbelievably cool.
Thank you.
And that's what, you know, that's the creativity that's going to maybe get you launched a little sooner. But maybe somebody who's really skilled but maybe a little more shy or something will still get drug along with that eventually. You know what I'm saying? But for those of you who then decide to go a different route, if you still love music and you want to stay in it, you can do it like I did and just kind of accept the fact that you're never maybe going to fulfill your full potential, but you're still going to have a really good time with it. I will say that one advantage of my approach is I don't really have to do gigs that I don't like to do, you know?
That's nice.
So, I mean, I have, you know, as a part of it is you got to stay connected. And so I'll do a casual for somebody who needed a sub sometimes and find myself wondering what the hell I'm doing there. But I don't do that much of it. And mostly when I play, it's because I'm really wanting to. I'm getting my quintet together and I'm going and, you know, playing at a bar or a club.
Yeah, that's nice to have that luxury. You know?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perception, man. I really enjoyed listening to that.
I think, you know, it's something that I tell all my students, and you've really taken it to heart, and I'm totally convinced it works. It's just a networking thing, and eventually it'll come through for you, because people's talent is not in question at this level. You know, people, they have the talent. It's so hard to be a musician because you work so hard, you put in so many hours, and the financial reward may or may not ever be commensurate with the amount of time that you put into it. But I think if you're patient and you hone all of your skills